And of course, a good game needs giant onyx pyramid ships. But that's a really cool image I love showing. But I'm not allowed to talk about those yet. Maybe someday down the road.
In Season of Arrivals, the Vanguard is divided. You have some characters telling you, you know, we should fight these ships, and we have other characters who are saying, no, 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 we should find out what they want. We should get to know them and understand more. But it definitely comes to a head.
This next year in Destiny is really just about how all the different characters and factions are reacting to these disappeared destinations and what that means as the pyramids have arrived in our system, not for the first time, but for the second time.
Who's right? Who wasn't? How are those learnings going to change the characters that you have gotten to know over the last 6 years?
At Bungie, we really believe that mystery and adventure begin at the intersection of the expected and the unexpected.
I have been patient, and I have bided my time for, I want to say, over a year now. But I truly believe that the moment has come to step forward and say, for once with confidence, I was right. Hello my friends, for those of you new to the channel, I will introduce myself. To the regulars, you know who I am, but let's just introduce myself to the new guys first, okay? So, I am Venextron, and I dig very deep into the lore of Destiny in order to learn as much as I can about the pyramid ships and the darkness. And while we're talking about introductions, you know, I'm getting to know you, you're getting to know me, my strongest political beliefs also happen to be the facts that pineapple doesn't belong on pizza, and that the Disney sequel trilogy doesn't belong in Star Wars. I'm just gonna let that simmer for a bit. Oh, they're so mad. There you go. You either love me or you hate me. It's great, isn't it? It's so simple. It's so simple.
Most of the world doesn't share your opinion, Mr. Wayne.
We just have a bad history with freaks dressed like clowns.
Boys! I love it. I love bringing people together. How are we?
Lex.
Hello. Good. Hi. Hello. Lex, it is a pleasure. Ow! Wow, that is a good grip. You should not pick a fight with this person.
Right, okay. Meme time is over. So what am I on about? What is it that Bungie has done to prove me right? I don't know what the title of the video is going to be, the reveal, the proof, whatever. What is it that they've done? And actually, now that I'm sitting here talking to you, what is it that I'm even right about? Let me tell you. So, for just a little over a year now, I have had the belief that the pyramid ships are not the darkness. It's a pretty bold claim and belief to have. When the characters in the world call them the darkness, when most of the other lore channels call them the darkness, and when a good chunk of the player base call them the darkness. At the time, I stepped forward, I presented my evidence, and I said, this thing might look obvious, but nah, it ain't. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you my video presentation as to how Bungie has proved me right this year. It all goes back to the original video, the one that I made just before Beyond Light came out, the one that started it all, the Eldritch theory. I know, I never shut up about it, I keep going on and on and on, but anyway, I will now show you part of the argument that I made in that. Apologies for the mic in the clip, by the way, but we fixed that later on, didn't we? In order to even begin this, we need to separate the pyramids from the darkness. The only thing that would maybe make you hesitant to believe this is that the world of Destiny and the characters in the world are constantly telling you that they are the darkness. However, the evidence that I have found and that the observations that I've made, I'm 100% telling you now that they are not the darkness. The Winnower is in control of the darkness. The Winnower is an entity that has a physical and a ethereal form. I'm assuming the same goes for the Gardener.
We can recognize when the winnower is present because, according to the soon-to-be awoken during the collapse, when they encountered the winnower at the edge of the system, all the stars went black and gravity went crazy. And of course, even people in the lore community have already associated very clearly gravity powers with the darkness. The winnower and the pyramids are two different entities, and the ones that control the pyramids are two different entities. And we have gameplay evidence for this. The people in the pyramids and the winnower have both communicated with us. The people in the pyramid have used verbal communication through our ghosts. The winnower contacting us through the lore book unveiling. The key thing here is the language used. The winnower only speaks to us using singular pronouns, I and me. The pyramid people only speak using plural pronouns, so us and we. I'm going to give you two examples here, and these are lines from both the winnower and the pyramid people. So the winnower would say, "My man Oryx." This is a quote from the Book of Sorrows. The pyramid people would say, "We bring only truth." Another example, the winnower would say, "She will bow to me." The pyramid people would say, "We are your salvation." This very clear distinction in terms of the language very clearly shows that they are two different entities. This next example is even more obvious, and, well, not obvious, but even more, I guess you could say, game-changing in terms of the lore than the previous. And that is that the pyramid ships and the winnower entered our system during the collapse at two different times. This isn't me speculating this is actually in the lore. Whoever really talks about the Traveler during the collapse, they always say that the Traveler touched Io last. Everybody says that, and it's true. We know this because I'm fairly certain that on Titan it talks about the Traveler being detected leaving from Io and going to Earth. So the assumption here is that when the collapse happened, the Traveler was on Io, and then it beelined it to Earth. That is established. We also know from the vision we get from the Traveler during the time that we're lightless right after the Red War begins in Vanilla Destiny 2, that when the Traveler is on Io, the pyramids are there. Now here's the thing. It's just kind of said, I guess you could say, that the Awoken, or before they were awoken, were the first ones to encounter the darkness at the edge of the system during the collapse. However, when this happens, in the lore book I'll have in the description below, I can't remember, I think it's Maracena. When they encounter the winnower, all the stars go black and the gravity gets crazy, Rasputin contacts them and says that they are needed on Earth, the Traveler's on Earth, and that there is heavy gunfire or, weapon discharges going on there. So we have the winnower at the edge of the system, but the Traveler's on Earth, and everything's going to crap. We know that the Traveler was on Io, and then when the collapse happened, it beelined it to Earth, which means, without a doubt, the Traveler was on Io, the pyramids attacked it on Io, the Traveler defeated them, went to Earth, the pyramids following, and then when it was on Earth, then the winnower arrived in the system. This very clearly shows that the pyramids and the winnower were two different entities with the same target.
So that was my base argument as to why the two were separate. Different pronouns used, at different locations at different times, yes, good. Now, that alone was enough evidence for me. But at the end of the day, I could only be certain I was right when the answer was in the game in a way that everyone could see and hear. This brings us to the season of the Chosen. And presage, presage, I don't know. Now, at this stage, Bungie is making their move. I personally think that the story of the pyramids and the darkness, it's a lot. And so instead of dumping everything into just one expansion and potentially half doing it, Bungie is spoon-feeding us information through the seasons, and Presage is a very good example of this. For starters, at the start of the season, the pyramids were for the first time not simply called the Darkness by the in-game characters, but instead were labeled as the Black Fleet. This was huge, as how the characters perceive the pyramids majorly affects how the majority of the player base sees them. So for a character to decide, no, I'm not going to call them the Darkness, but something else, was a big brain move on Bungie's part. Narrative team, thank you. Hire me already, thanks, okay. So the pyramids had a new name, and soon the Winnower would get one as well. Presage would achieve two things. The mission itself was very much about the Darkness, obviously, but the corruption inside the Glycon was something we had never seen before. This, from a visual standpoint, immediately separated the Darkness from the pyramids. Up until now, people were visualizing pyramid ship architecture when you mentioned the Darkness. Now there was something else. At the same time, a new character was introduced. Well, not for the first time, but in a way that mattered. Bring in the voice in the darkness, the entity. Singular pronouns and separate from the pyramid ships. You'll love to see it. I could go into a lot of detail talking about the discoveries made in that mission, but I don't need to do that because I already made a video about it. Here's a clip of me examining some of the dialogue. Now, I didn't know at the time that Osiris was Savathun, but looking back on it in hindsight, I think her knowing more than Keitel while they're talking adds to it very nicely. Okay, roll the clip. Line, let's go.
A glorious chain of dark minds, an open mouth for the one in the darkness, that it may sing in exaltation of my majesty.
A key argument for the Winnower being separate to the pyramids was the type of pronoun both characters use. If you go back and watch part 2 of the Eldritch Theory, or just go watch any clip of the pyramids talking to us, you'll notice a pattern. The beings within the pyramids always reference themselves using plural pronouns. So for example, we are your salvation. We offer only truth. At the same time, the Winnower is on record to have said, I am by all accounts the winning side, and my man Oryx. As you have heard from this voice line, the pattern is continued. The one in the darkness. What is even more interesting is that both One and Darkness and many other titles for this referenced character have a capital letter at the start. What this shows us is that we are dealing with one character and a character of great importance. Okay, line 2, go.
Greatness recognizes greatness. To invoke the attention of the end, our offer must be great.
This is more of a fun fact than anything else. So the word end has a capital, which I've already explained why that is, but why is the character called the End? Well, it all goes back to the Winnower's logic. It's basically the Sword logic, but I'll just explain it. He believes that only strong life should be allowed to live, and that if you're weak, then you should die as to not hinder and burden the strong. Here's the problem with that logic. In this universe that both the Gardener and the Winnower created, there will never be anything that is strong forever. At some stage, everything will become weak and so deserve to die. What is this character the end of? Ultimately, the entire universe. And that, my friends, is why being Dark Guardians isn't smart or cool, it's just edgy. Line 3, you're up.
Callus' scribe identifies a voice in the darkness. One of their mother, of dead enemies, of Gaul. They say it spoke to Callus in his own voice, taught him how to commune.
In the singular, and both voice and darkness have a capital. Already explained that. Cool. So what's special about this? Well, this line by itself concretely, without a doubt, distinguishes the Winnower and the pyramids as different characters. When the beings within the pyramids communicate with us, not only do they speak using plural pronouns, but just pretty obviously, they speak in many voices. Here it is clear that what spoke to Callus spoke as one voice. It may have been in the guise of different people at different stages, but it was always one thing talking, if you get me. Nice. Line 6 speaketh.
It allowed the darkness to invade the Scorn's thoughts,
of the darkness. The entity.
The two are entwined. Does the difference matter?
That there is a difference makes our understanding of the darkness a facade.
This line is the big boy, and it's easily my favorite, as it finally reveals what I've been saying for a while. I'm in college at the moment, and I can tell you for a fact that English is a load of waffle. One thing I learned about that I did find interesting though was the term unreliable narrator. It's basically when you get information from someone about something they don't know fully about. Let me give you an example. A murder mystery book, or a show, or something like that. A character might say, oh, they did it. They might genuinely believe what they're saying, and they're not trying to fool you. But you, the viewer, reader, you know not to take that at face value until the author finally reveals who did it. I once had a message telling me that the pyramids have to be the darkness because the characters in-game say that they are. Exactly the same logic applies here. Spooky pyramids show up and everyone assumes it's the darkness. They might genuinely believe that to be the case, but this line shows a realization that perhaps they were wrong. Let me break it down for you. Keitel claims that the darkness entered the Scorn. Osiris, like the other human characters, he believes that the pyramids are the darkness and so automatically says no, it can't be the darkness. Remembering that other line, he defaults to saying instead it was this entity that he had heard mentioned like 5 minutes previously. Now this is interesting. Keitel responds saying that the darkness and the entity are intertwined. Does the difference matter? This ties in with the final line I'll show you, but what's interesting about this is that Keitel's response shows us and Osiris that her idea of what the darkness is, and Osiris's idea of what it is, are different. They're both not on the same page, but they're both not stupid. They both have had experience with this. Osiris realizes this and realizes that there is more to the darkness than he thinks. Now, I certainly didn't realize this until I was actually writing the script, but I want you to know, he never says, you're right, it was the darkness that went into the Scorn, or argues back saying, no, the entity is different. This is because Osiris is an extremely intelligent character, and when he realizes that he knows less than he thought he did, he realizes he is in no place to make claims about something he doesn't fully understand. So instead, he spits facts. Our understanding of the darkness is a facade, or as I like to put it, we have no idea what we're talking about. What does this exchange mean? It means that just because your ghost tells you something, you shouldn't assume it's a fact. The characters of this world are unreliable narrators, my friend, trying to discover the truth the same as us, and this conversation really shows it. This is part 2 in a trilogy, I guess we could say. Part 1 was from Season of Arrivals to Season of the Hunt. That's the time frame you're looking at. All the characters, except for, I don't know, maybe the Drifter, believed that the pyramid ships were 100% the darkness. And they clearly stated this out loud. The darkness this, the darkness that, the darkness whatever. Part 2 is Season of the Chosen to Season of the Lost. That's the time frame again for that. Most characters during this time still believe that the pyramids are the darkness, but some are beginning to doubt their beliefs now. Again, looking at Osiris and Keitel, talking about how their understanding of the pyramids are the darkness, it's a facade. They don't know what they're talking about. Finally, this brings us to part 3. Season of the Lost. Oh my days. I'm just gonna hit you with the clips. Let's go.
The Taken pursued her here. Taken she once controlled. Taken that now serve a new master. Or, if Sadathum is to be believed, their original master. Not her brother, Oryx, but something far older. She fears it. It commands Zebu Arath to conquer the ascendant space surrounding the Dreaming City, to use the Taken in her campaign against us. For now.
Listen to me now. Look beyond me to my worm. Look beyond my worm to something far, far worse.
In my travels, I have seen true It is the worm gods that the Hive serve. It is the Black Fleet, waiting to strike. It is the entity that commands them all. The voice in the darkness. These creatures are not evil because they wield darkness. They are evil because, like Sarathun and Zil-Araf, they are cruel, hateful things with no regard for the lives of others.
This, without a doubt, single-handedly, beautifully, proves that the Winnower is the entity, the voice in the darkness, the end, the final shape, the deep, the darkness itself. By stating that the entity commands the worm gods and the Taken, Mara proves that the Winnower is the entity. Oryx himself says that they, and by they I refer to the Hive and then therefore also the worm gods, he says that they serve, and I quote, the darkness which is the deep. So whatever they serve is the darkness. At the same time, we know the Winnower is buddies with Oryx, as in the lore book Unveiling, he refers to Oryx as my man Oryx. This chill way of speaking perfectly matches with the tone of the Darkness of the Deep, who tells Oryx to kick back and relax. And this is in the entry Majestic, Majestic in the Book of Sorrows. So, to clarify, the Winnower has stated in the Unveiling lore book that he was pals with Oryx, and there was only one being that Oryx would willingly be friendly with outside of family. And that was, of course, the deep, the darkness, whatever. And on top of all of that, Mara has said that this entity is what commands the worm gods, and therefore the Hive. So it all fits together nicely. Okay, I'm over-explaining it, but I really hope this is making sense, because this is really huge. Big stuff. Oh, and by the way, this entity is also stated to be in command of the Black Fleet. So, they aren't the big bad everyone thought they were. And we know the entity, and this is just a bit of deduction on my end. Of course, it's speculation to a certain extent, but it's a very, I do believe it's educated speculation. So, you don't have to believe it, but I'm going to say it anyway. This entity, I believe we can confidently claim that the entity is not on the fleet, because that's where Callus would have gone. Think about it. Callus was searching for the darkness so that he could communicate with it. Why not go to the pyramids? Didn't have any interest in them at all. And at the same time, I know, personally, that it's not on the fleet. Because in the lore book Unveiling, which is in 2019, when Shadowkeep came out, the Winnower states, or at least the being who refers to himself as the Winnower in the story, states that he is now beginning to go on his way to meet us. And this is what, a year? 2 years after the pyramids have begun their journey here? And the thing is, it would be one thing just to say, well, it's a coincidence, or it's just luck. How can you base, the thing is, this is repeating history. This matches the collapse perfectly. Before the collapse happened, the pyramids found out where the Traveler was before the Winnower did. And that is most likely why they arrived in our system before he did. And by the way, I'm not just saying this. As I showed you, this is proven in cutscenes and in the written lore. And there you have it, right? No longer am I coming at you with deep lore and hieroglyphics. This is straight from Bungie's mouths in-game in a way that anyone and everyone who has played this season will have seen. I have shown you this cutscene from this season, and at the same time now I've shown you the stuff I've drawn on from previous seasons and even as far back as The Taken King. And it's all been building up to this moment, and I think a lot of people have missed it, but I haven't. And what this cutscene gives us, what it gives me, is something you cannot in any way misinterpret. You cannot in any way argue against. You can't say the entity is not the darkness, it's a different thing entirely because of the link to Oryx and the worm gods and the Taken. Again, this is the Taken's original master. There's only one thing this could be. There's no way you can argue against it. And I mean that as respectfully as possible. I want that to be clear because, especially on places like the old Reddit and stuff like that, you know, people are going to disagree with me, and that's fine. So I'm not trying to be cocky, I'm not trying to be arrogant, I'm not trying to say, well, I want this to be right, so it's right. If you can prove me wrong, please do. And I don't mean that in a confrontational way, I mean that in a way that if I can know better, I'd like to know better. But at the moment, it's not that way. At the moment, I think that this argument is correct, and I believe that Bungie has proved it to be correct. And this proof is something that can be seen in-game by everyone. This is no longer concept art. It's no longer hieroglyphics, me trying to learn ancient Egyptian. It's solid. So, Mr. Luke Smith, the setter of suns, I thank you. I still wish you made Destiny 3 instead of the Aramis expansion, but that's okay. I will forgive you eventually. Alright friends, it is time to move forward on to the next video. If you want to talk to me directly, leave a comment. Or if you want to join the best Discord community, I've ever seen personally, join my Discord. I'll have a link in the description, and talk not only to me, but to others who love the lore like I do, and like that you do as well. And I assure you, if you join, you'll make friends. It'll be great. Okay. And hey, even if you don't, you'll have me. Finally, if you want to join the journey, you know the options available to you. Our time is at hand, my friends. And together, we will all rise.
Get out here, boy.
Lend your support. Subscribe and stand at our side. The journey is just beginning.